everyone, and welcome to another episode of Trey Cannon. So today, what I wanted to talk about was, well, this is what had happened. What had happened was, I was asked what my favorite starship was. Okay. Now I need you guys to understand that my favorite Star Trek series is Deep Space Nine, for quite a few reasons, but my favorite starship is the Defiant, the USS Defiant, NX-74205, or it was affectionately known as Captain Cisco's motherfucking Pimpan. All right, now in this conversation, the Dauntless came up. Now, in Trek canon, there's two Dauntlesses. All right, there's the USS Dauntless, and there's the Dauntless class. All right, somewhere in this video, I get around to explaining the difference between the two ships. But when I was talking about the Dauntless and its origins, it led me to one of the things that Captain Janeway probably doesn't get too much flack for. So I'm going to give it to her here. I'm going to give her the flack. All right. See, the thing is that the USS Dauntless was in an episode called Hope and Fear. It's a Voyager episode. Now, it was from season 4, episode 26 or something like that, but it was called Hope and Fear. And it takes place after the events of Scorpion 1 and 2. Now, for those of you who don't know, in Scorpion 1 and 2, Captain Janeway somehow makes an alliance with the Borg.
I have reached an agreement with the Collective. We're going to help them design a weapon against Species 8472. In exchange, they've granted us safe passage through their space. We'll work on the weapon en route. Once we're across their territory, we'll give them the nanoprobes. They appear to be holding up their end of the bargain. I suggest we do the same.
Now, why did I decide to talk about this in Star Trek canon? Because that's what we talk about. We talk about decisions and things like that, episodes and situations that have had a great impact on Star Trek canon. And this is one of them. Actually, a lot of things Janeway did had a bunch of impact on Star Trek canon. But let's talk about this particular one. All right. So for those of you who don't know, and I apologize for any spoilers, but for those of you who don't know, in the episode Scorpion 1 and 2, the Borg was in a war with Species 8472 that they started. And they were losing bad. They couldn't assimilate them, whatever. So the Doctor had been working on ways to make an immunity to the Borg nanites. And in his investigation, in his experimentations, he found that he can use Borg nanites as weapons of mass destruction, basically, for this new species. Now, I wanted to get a little bit into the situation because there are some contradictions in episodes when it comes to Species 8472, and I think I could explain it. Now, in Scorpion 1, Cass was slightly telepathically connected to Species 8472, and this is what I need a lot of people to realize. Cass said that Species 8472 was malevolent and that they felt that everything in the galaxy needed to be purged. All right. Now, there are some assumptions that we can make. When they opened up the portal and they went into the Species 8472 realm, the only thing that was there was Species 8472 that we could tell. All right. They didn't pick up anything else, no planetary bodies, anything like that. It was just Species 8472. So it's reasonable to assume that from their dimension, they're the only thing that exists. So it's also reasonable to assume that when the Borg invaded their space, they felt that the Borg were the only thing from their dimension. Now, if somebody come over into your house and start, causing ruckus, right? And they don't know the type of power you will. So you say, well, I'm gonna go over here to your house because I'm gonna come over to your house and cause ruckus. I'm gonna have to say anybody in your house is probably gonna be associated with the people coming over there. Why do I say that? Because Voyager rose up on a damaged cube in the middle of a battlefield, right? All jacked up, and one of the bioships is connected to the cube. So what they do, they beam over to the Borg cube. Now, how would species A472 know, well, besides the Borg implants, that these humanoids are any different from these humanoids that's coming over here fighting? So yeah, I see you on the Borg ship. The Borg ship is our enemy. Vis-a-vis, you must be the enemy. So there you go on that. Now, the thing about it is that, well, we go back to what I was talking about, the Dauntless. Now, the Dauntless was in this episode called Hope and Fear, and the thing about Hope and Fear is that we meet a species, a guy named Arturus. He's from species 116 or something like that, and for hundreds of years, for centuries, they had been avoiding assimilation from the Borg. They were pretty advanced technologically, from Federation standards. Now, this is the thing. Basically, Arturus was pissed off that Janeway helped the Borg, which as a result caused his species to get assimilated. Okay, and not just his species, but several other species. Now, what I wanted to talk about from Hope and Fear was the Prime Directive as well. The Prime Directive basically states that we're not going to, that Starfleet or the Federation isn't going to interfere in the internal development of a species. And there's been many examples as to why, and many examples as to why not in Star Trek canon over the decades. Now, let's talk about what she did. Captain Janeway, in essence, developed weapons of mass destruction, gave those weapons to a known enemy of the Federation to defeat a species that the Borg started a war with. Okay? Think about that for a second. Now, do you remember Admiral Nechev from The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine? Can you imagine what she would have told Janeway if she had got briefed on something like that? Think about what she told Picard when Picard didn't want to use Hugh as a weapon of mass destruction against the Borg. First of all, let me just say that once you hear Admiral, man, like I say, man, you just turn different. But this probably going to explain why. So I need you guys to understand something else about Species A472. I forget the episode, but Species A472 had basically made a mock simulation of Starfleet, and they had changed their biology and appearance to appear human. All right, so in an effort to infiltrate Starfleet. Now, in that episode, we learned that Species A472 is not only powerful, but they are wise. Okay, they're cautious. Okay, so what can we infer from that episode? Let's say, for instance, Species A472 did succeed in infiltrating Starfleet. What would have happened? I don't consider Species A472 malevolent. I mean, malevolent. I do not. They could have destroyed Voyager. They could have killed the people there and continued on with their mission, but they didn't. They formed an alliance with them, an understanding with them. So what would have happened if Species A472 infiltrated Starfleet? They would have found out the same thing that they did when they interacted with Voyager crew, the Starfleet personnel of Voyager crew. That Starfleet is not a threat to them. Okay, and that most of the species in our dimension, in our galaxy, isn't a threat to them, and they wouldn't have purged nothing. They probably would have went back to their own dimension, or at the most formed an alliance with Starfleet. Okay, so I don't think that would have been something that the species would have done. So using that as an excuse to be like, oh well, Which devil is, is the devil, No, no. I don't consider species 8472 the devil. I consider that whole thing a misunderstanding. Okay. Now, let's get back to our tourists. Now, basically, Janeway gave these guys, the board, weapons of mass destruction, made them more powerful as in their own quadrants, okay, which made them able to assimilate species better. And not to mention, what if the Borg decided to go back into species 8472 territory with their new weapons and either destroy them or assimilate them? Janeway was real bogus on that, so I can understand why Tourist did what he did. Now, there was something in Hope and Fear that I thought was interesting. And, two things. And we're getting back to the Dauntless. So, in that episode, Arturus was able to shift the appearance and basically shift his ship from their indigenous type ship to one that looked like a Federation ship. And it was called the USS Dauntless. Okay? A beautiful ship. Super sleek. The design was awesome. All right? Now, how did he do that? Now, this was the second thing. They had a technology called particle synthesis. They were able to rearrange the particles on their matter into basically what they wanted. Does that sound familiar? So, let's continue. Now, the USS Dauntless, all right, that was another ship. And the Dauntless class is another vessel, all right? And that was from the Enterprise episode, what was it, Azar Prime or something crazy like that. It was like season 3, episode 18 or something like that. But that is a Dauntless class vessel. And what's speculated is that Voyager's sensors, while engaging this particular Dauntless, the USS Dauntless, was able to scan that design. When it got back, that design was used in a future Federation model, which became the Dauntless class vessel. Okay, now, programmable matter. I had talked smack about it. I figured that it was the Doctor Who sonic screwdriver of Star Trek. But in canon, okay, because I have to speak on canon and not really my personal feelings unless it's Barry and Kirk up under rubble. But in canon, I would see that as natural progression. If your scanners picked up the USS Dauntless and you guys liked that design and was able to incorporate that into your Starfleet designs at Mars, Utopia, Planitia, then the particle synthesis technology would also be something that that Starfleet found valuable. Because as we know, we've always been trying to synthesize things on a holodeck and bring them off. That's been one big thing they've always been trying to do. So, what was the issue? The issue was a blatant violation of the Prime Directive. And I'm not talking about a blatant violation of Prime Directive like, say, Kirk in A Private Little War, where he gave his homie and they tried the flintlocks to equal the weaponry that the Klingons had given the other side. And you know how he felt about that, okay? How much that troubled him. And he was balancing it, all right? So Janeway blatantly broke the Prime Directive when she did that, all right? Now, the weird thing is that the only person who was really opposing her was a non-Starfleet person, a Marquis. Chakotay, hey man, do you know what we'll be doing if we did that? Look, I can't allow you to do that. That's why he challenged her all the way. And when I was a shorty watching that episode, I was like, man, why Chakotay tripping? But when I got older, I understood, hey, Chakotay tripping because he's not just thinking about Voyager and the Voyager crew. He's thinking about all these other species that will be affected as a result of helping the Borg, like for real, helping the Borg. We haven't even really tried to communicate effectively with species 8472. Our first run in, we got shot. Why? Because we on the Borg ship while they fighting the Borg. Of course you're going to get shot at. You know what I mean? So, come on with that. So, I'm gonna have to say, being a private service guy myself, if you give aid, if you willingly give aid to the enemy, which the Borg are, that's treason. So that not only did that act violate the Prime Directive, it was treasonous. All right. Let's see what else. Armed and aggressive species. They engineered weapons of mass destruction. Man, they took the balance in the war and chose sides. Okay. So the result of that, is the destruction, the probable destruction or attack on species 8472. Okay. Assimilation of species 116, Arcturus species. Okay. And just so you guys know, in Hope and Fear, that's one of the very rare episodes where you see the Borg actually send force to assimilate a system instead of just one cube. Okay. So this, of course, expanded Borg space. Okay, it basically made the Borg more powerful for the Federation. And that's, come on. Now, another thing that Captain Janeway is a first at, besides pure violation of the Prime Directive, is three main directives in the Federation in Starfleet. Okay. The first is the Prime Directive. I told you guys what that was. The second is the Omega Directive. Okay, that was something brought forth in the next generation in Voyager as well. How did she violate the Omega Directive? She told everybody what we was doing. You're not supposed to do that. Okay, yeah, but Tommy, she didn't have a choice. She didn't have an Omega Directive crew to come in and help her out. She didn't have Starfleet help her out. Then, according to the directive, she should have handled that herself. Okay. And the temporal directive. Captain Janeway is the only captain featured in Trek canon to ever have a temporal agent actively trying to erase her from the time stream, because actively trying to destroy the Voyager, trying to destroy her specifically because of the danger she posed to the time stream. Now, think about that. People always talk about Kirk being, matter of fact, they even mentioned that in a Deep Space Nine episode, Trials and Tribulations, that Kirk was the biggest violator of the temporal Prime Directive. Nah, it wasn't. Kirk saved the world. You know what I mean? Janeway saved her ship. Kirk saved humanity. Janeway saved her ship. And even though Kirk saved the world, he still got in trouble and got demoted. Janeway got promoted to Admiral. She violated the Prime Directive, the Omega Directive, and the Temporal Directive. To such an extent, the Temporal Captain had to come and try to kill her and got psychosis from trying to kill her. Come on, man. Come on. So, I just wanted to chat about Janeway and that particular decision.